Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Jim Grzanzio from the Oracle Groundbreakers team, and I'm back here for some more interviews for the Sangam 20 conference, which is taking place this week, next week, and the week after that. This is for the India community, and as you know, they do things in grand style with multi-week conferences. And I'm here with one of the core speakers at the conference, Beda Hammerschmidt from Germany, and Beda is a Oracle architect. One of the core engineers on the database team. Beda, welcome to the program.
Hey, Jim, great to be on here.
Nice to see you again. Unlike usual, like when I look at the speaker lists for these conferences, I'm usually looking for new people I can meet because I'm always interested in meeting new friends around the world. I saw you were giving a talk and I said, I want to talk to Beda again because I so thoroughly enjoyed the previous conversation we had
Thank you.
A few months ago when you were talking at the OG Yatra tour. I get you back in July. So, so we will just continue our friendship here, okay, instead of making new friends.
Cool.
So I noticed that you're talking about JSON, and again, obviously, but the title of your talk intrigued me. You said JSON and moon landing. And the moon landing, the 50-year journey to autonomous JSON database. So take me to the moon. What's this all about?
Well, yes, I was looking for a catchy title that had something to do with JSON. In the past, I did a lot of presentations where I walked people through features like this is that operator and you would use it here. But after a while, I realized you also have to look at the data model JSON itself. You cannot only tell people what features you have to explain the animal itself. And JSON is a hierarchical data model, and that has some big implications. So I was looking to, it's basically a history lesson or a data model talk, and I wanted to just sounded catchy. And I'm going all the way back to the beginning of databases where people started with something quite similar to JSON. It was IBM IMS, and that was developed by 3 companies back then for the to build the Saturn moon rocket. So that started in the 60s. And look what I got here for you. I put it on the desk. It's my Lego set. It's very brittle. I have to
that's Lego?
move it very carefully. It's Lego, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's got like 1,669 pieces. Like the number of pieces is the year when they launched the mission. And in order to build that
1969.
19, yeah, what did I say?
16.
Oh no, 19, 1969. Yeah. No, I'm
now,
a little nervous here.
If it was 1600, that would have been a real accomplishment. Yeah.
Probably there were some aliens involved if that was the case. No. But the real thing had about 2 million parts, just the rocket, not all the moon landing equipment. And they needed something like a database. They didn't call it database back then. I think they called it like information management system or data bank. And that led to the first commercial database product, IBM IMS. That has actually quite some similarities to JSON these days. And that's the history lesson I'm giving. And it also explains why hierarchical data models are not suitable to solve every use case and why relational databases still make a lot of sense, why they solved a lot of the problems that these hierarchical data models or hierarchical databases had. And the big lesson is basically if you use JSON without really knowing about the properties of a hierarchical data model, you're up to a time travel, unfortunately, into the past, where you rediscover all the issues that led to the development of relational databases. So my message is kind of, yes, JSON is very modern as a data format, but the model itself is not really new. And ideally, you want to combine the best of the relational model and the JSON data model. And that's why I call it the moon landing.
Wow, that's excellent. That's really cool. I mean, so many times, I mean, technology is just so in our faces today, right?
Right.
It just has this sort of feel of being new, everything's new.
Yeah.
But really, when you start looking at the real history of this stuff, it does go back a long time. And I wasn't at all aware that your work here, this, sort of the heritage, goes that far back to the moon. Yeah.
Well, JSON is used where XML was used maybe 15 years ago. So we had, for example, web services, and now you have REST calls, etc. So a lot of problems have maybe slightly changed, but are fundamentally the same. We just throw a different animal at it that may be easier to use or faster, but the basic fundamental problems often are the same. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like the fashion industry. I remember when I joined Oracle, I was at HQ, and I was attending a talk with Larry Ellison himself. And he was comparing what I found very odd. He was comparing the computer or the software industry with the fashion industry, where he said, okay, yeah, green is the next yellow or something like this. And there's actually a lot of truth in it. What I discovered later, that you can just invent something or claim to have invented something by giving it a new name, and then everyone goes, "Ooh, yeah, so this is new. I must have it." Yeah.
One of the issues that we discussed in July, which I found very interesting, was that, when you think of JSON and the database, I mean, how do you bring them together? And in terms of, so JSON is ordinarily thinking of it as a web technology, right?
JSON started out as in the framework of web technology. So it was a data exchange format. So think of your web server communicating with your web browser by exchanging JSON messages. That is the big origin of JSON. Probably started 15 years ago or so. So it's not a new data format at all. But what happened from a history point of view is that everyone who coded some HTML at some point learned JavaScript to make these pages interactive. Mm-hmm. And JSON is short for JavaScript object notation. So everyone then learned about JSON and wanted to use it. And so it was just a natural extension that at some point people say, hey, I want to store my JSON. I want to find stuff inside. And in order to make it to find these things efficiently, I need an index. Then I want to do reporting over my JSON, etc. So it's kind of the same database requirements then happen over JSON data.
Okay, so what's the relationship to autonomous database?
Yes, we've created Oracle has all these autonomous databases, and we created a new product on that family. It is an autonomous database that is tailored for JSON-based development. So if someone says, I want to write an application using JSON as my primary data model, they could obviously do all that with any JSON database or any JSON autonomous database. But with the autonomous JSON database, they get it at a very competitive offer, meaning they get it at a much lower price point. But it's the same technology, and people can always upgrade if they realize later, oh, I want to do more relational things. This is not only a JSON use case. And they just click a mouse button in the cloud UI, and they upgrade to a transaction processing, for example.
I see. And I think I remember this is a few months ago, right? Actually, that
in August. Released? We launched the service in August. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And so how many, you've given this talk before in terms of the 50-year history?
Yeah, this was the VLDB sponsor talk. So I was given like maybe a few days notice, like give a fun talk for VLDB, the sponsor talk. And that's when I had to come up with something catchy, right? And I thought, well, moon landing and JSON, maybe that attracts a few people on a database conference. Yeah.
I'm really into history, and I really see the value of history. And so I'm always interested to learn about the history of specific fields like medicine or technology, because in school we learn basically political history. We learn wars in countries and things like this. We don't necessarily learn. Actually, we don't learn the history of a given field unless you go out and actually research it.
That's actually very true. Never thought about it, but that's true. Even in math, there is clear developments in math, and all you learn is math, but not the history of it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I'm just wondering if you've given this before, what the reaction is from developers, any kind of discussions that were taking place as a result of you going all the way, back into history like that, especially to the moon, because engineers love that stuff, right?
Right. It is really an interesting story, because if you realize what achievement it was to fund this very, very complex project, it was not really the moon rocket itself. There were a lot of other technical machinery that had to be built. So this is why I find this story very interesting, and you can put a lot of information in there. So I haven't given this to like very large audiences, that there are like some typical questions. And it's also a technical presentation to that point, that I then say, well, if you process JSON in a relational database, then you don't run into the issues that a purely hierarchical database has. And then there are a lot of questions like, how do I do this? How do I do, for example, foreign keys or check constraints, things like this. So it's not so many questions about the space things yet. So yeah.
Okay, so well, that makes sense. I mean, obviously, you're not talking to people like me, right? So, so when you gave the talk back to Sangam, the Indian community, I'm sorry, the OG Yatra tour in July, and now here for Sangam next week. So this will be your second experience with the Indian community, and hopefully next year, you can actually get there yourself.
That would be very cool. Yes.
And so you can experience it live. The thing that I'm always interested in the Indian community is that sometimes you can give a talk, say it's an hour or something, and you can have an hour and a half of Q&A. There's a lot.
I remember there were a lot of questions, and even like weeks after the Yatra conference, people contacted me and asked me, how do I do this? Oh, this was great. This is really good. This is what I'm really looking for. These presentations are really more starters for an ongoing engagement.
Right, exactly.
And that's really what we want to achieve here, that people know, oh, I can do this in the Oracle database, but then if it comes to details, they can always reach out and hopefully get a good reply.
Right. I find the Indian community is a lot of young people, and they're very bold, and they're very interested, and they're very smart. So cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Jim.
It's just past midnight here, and I got some more stuff to do. But it looks like it's in the afternoon there. You're in Germany, right?
I'm almost in Denmark. If I look out the window, I can see Denmark, but technically it's Germany. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. All right.
Okay.
Well, Beda Hammerschmidt from Germany, and 50 years of JSON since the moon landing for the autonomous database. Cool. And we'll talk to you hopefully soon.
Yes. Thank you, Jim.
Bye. Bye-bye.